This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City Tropical Update video for November 5th, 5 p.m. Here's the HurTrack program from this morning as Tropical Storm Tomas was east of Jamaica, well east of Jamaica. It will not be considered a brush for Kingston, Jamaica, as this was well to the east of there. And if we go to our next position, it approached Port Salut, Haiti, which is on near the west tip of the southern peninsula of Haiti. It passed roughly 51 nautical miles to the west of there, but notice the tiny tropical storm and hurricane force wind field as it became a hurricane. And this will be a brush for Port Salut, however, as they did experience sustained tropical storm force winds in the southern peninsula and heavy rain. And then if we see what happened throughout the course of the day, this came into the windward passage here and passed about 120 nautical miles to the west of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. It's still going to be debatable as to whether this is a brush for Haiti or not, for Port-au-Prince, because this passes over 120 nautical miles away, and our general rule of thumb is about 80 miles for large systems, 60 miles for smaller hurricanes would be considered a brush, and this is over 120 miles away, so it's unlikely it'll be a brush for Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And then we have our next area in the Hurricane City database, Baracoa, Cuba, which is right here on the northeast tip of Cuba. And there were reports from the ham radio this morning of storm surge coming into Baracoa, Cuba, so they did get the core of this hurricane just briefly clipping Baracoa. And also Guantanamo down here also reported some high winds and some very heavy rain earlier today as this passed by. So it will be more than likely a direct hit on Baracoa or a brush. We'll have to debate that. And Mole St. Nicholas here on the northwest tip of Cuba, of Haiti, also was near the sustained tropical storm force wind field, so this might also be considered a hit. We'll have to see about that, but it'll probably be a brush. And then, of course, tonight, Great Inagua should take a direct hit from this as a hurricane. It looks like it's a very small hurricane force wind field, however, and this may actually clip just to the right of Great Inagua. So our current feature is now the Turks and Caicos Islands, right out in here, as we feel that the highest winds will be coming out of the south and affecting the Turks and Caicos in the overnight hours. So you can get all the latest information at hurricanecity.com on the Turks and Caicos Islands as this moves forward and out of the way overnight. And then it moves up and kind of starts hanging a right-hand turn north of the Bahamas and hangs up south of Bermuda. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Hurricane Hunter fixes here this afternoon, and these barbs indicate the winds at the surface out here, and we're focusing on this area right here just to the west of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And let's take a look at what some of these winds are. We're seeing winds here of surface winds of around 50 to 55 miles an hour, in some cases up near 60 miles an hour at the surface, coming in west of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. So here's a surface wind of 50 knots. That's 55 miles an hour, 55, 65 mile an hour winds down near this island right here, right off the coast of Port-au-Prince. So just offshore Port-au-Prince are getting pretty high winds there. Now what's happening in Great Inagua? They're having winds right now around 40 miles per hour buffeting the island, and that'll get worse as the core of this hurricane gets right near Great Inagua as sunset happens tonight, and then it'll be near the Turks and Caicos later on this evening, 10 o'clock at night or so. But the core of the hurricane right now is in the windward passage. Here's the latest vortex fix, 992 millibars. That went down, up rather. Earlier this morning it was at 988 millibars when it was down here near the west tip of the southern peninsula of Haiti. And today it's up to 992 millibars. Surface wind 53 knots, maximum flight level wind 60 knots. That's 70 miles an hour. So it'll be interesting to see. They kept this at a hurricane here, but it'll be interesting to see if this continues to get a little more disorganized, if they classify this as a hurricane as it heads into Great Inagua this evening up in here. But the good news so far is there hasn't been a lot of heavy rain in Port-au-Prince as of this point, which is excellent news, because that was the big fear with all the tent cities and the refugee situation there and a cholera outbreak, that there would be very heavy rains and that would exacerbate the situation. Well, let's take a look at what's happening. Here is Port-au-Prince, and this is what the city of Port-au-Prince looks like. Again, you have these mountain ranges here with the stripped vegetation, and the rainwater just flows down the mountains into the cities. But so far, been watching the Weather Channel. Jim Cantori's been there. We've had a little bit of that on and off at hurricanecity.tv, and he's been reporting some swollen riverbanks and some rain running down streets and everything. But it stops and starts and stops and starts, so it hasn't been the complete deluge that we were fearing, at least up to this point. And here are the southern areas of Haiti that are vulnerable to flooding. And again, you have Port-au-Prince right in here, and you have 8,000-foot mountains, 6,000-foot mountains down here. We still have a very moist fetch coming in from the south, so it wouldn't be out of the question for quite a bit more rainfall to fall tonight before things clear out tomorrow. And again, here's Port Salut over here that was affected by very heavy rain this morning. Now let's look at, we took the HurTrack program and figured out all the storms in history that were in the same exact position as Tomas is in at around this time of the year, using November 5th through November 4th through November 6th. And the only storm we could find is an unnamed storm back in, well, they were all unnamed back in the 30s, but 1938, the same year as the Long Island Express, there was a system late in the hurricane season that developed down here and went like this and headed into Andros Island and then back south into Cuba and ended up down here in the western Caribbean Sea where it died out. But a very interesting track, to say the least, here in 1938. Here are all the models using the HurTrack program, and again you can see a general consensus. Here is Bermuda right here, and all the models now are pretty much split, or pretty much consensus of taking this south of Bermuda and hanging it up here. A lot of models want to hang it up just to the east of the Bahamas. In fact, there's a few models, the aviation model and the BAM models, that want to hang this up and take it south, actually down towards Puerto Rico. So that could be some interesting develops, but we'll get more in depth on that tomorrow, because what's going to happen here tonight and tomorrow is the wind shear is going to increase dramatically out of the southwest and west-southwest and really shred this system pretty significantly. But if we look at some of the model data on this, here are the model runs. Now the best performing model on the intensity of Tomas has been the NGXI, which is the Navy GFX interpolated model, Navy GFX model. And this NGXI keeps this at going out about 4 days from now at 66 knots, so it's pretty much status quo as a strong tropical storm or a Category 1 hurricane, even when it gets, if it does dip to the south towards Puerto Rico. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. That is an interesting scenario. Also, the CMC2 model has also been indicating that this is it's been a very good performing model as well, only off by about 6 knots going out 5 days, and this has it very weak, keeping it at 42 knots going out around 4 days from now. So this has it as a weak tropical storm. The NGXI keeps it near Cat 1, so it'll be interesting to see which one wins out in the long run if this heads towards Puerto Rico. Alright, here's a few days ago. This is going back to Sunday, October 31st. And you'll notice here that there were two models that indicated this could turn north and clip eastern Cuba, which that did not. I mean, it came close to Cuba, but it did not go into Cuba. And that was the BAM model here and the Canadian model. Both indicated that this would clip Jamaica and head into east Cuba here. But the other models, the Euro and the GFS and the NOGAPS and all of them, had this heading towards Haiti and going right through Haiti. So the CMC and the BAM model did the best going out, going back to October 31st, but none of the models had this going through the windward passage like it has done. So this is another indication that 4 days in advance, you really 4 to 5 days out, the models they're okay for general guidance, but when you try to narrow down a path, it's almost impossible going out 5 days. Alright, let's take a look at the floater loop of our system. And you can see that the convection has, it's kind of holding its own here, but not, it's kind of stretched out a little bit, not looking that well organized, and the radar indications are the center is over in here somewhere, and it's going to clip Great Inagua tonight, go through the Turks and Caicos, and then it'll be out to sea. But they could get some very strong gusty hurricane force winds tonight in the Turks and Caicos Islands for sure, and in Great Inagua, but it wouldn't surprise me if this weakened down to tropical storm status in the process, because this is still, the pressure continues to rise, and this is a disorganized system. Alright, let's take a look at the front page of Hurricane City. I did want to mention we have constant updates on the front page. Our current feature, again, is now the Caicos Islands, but if you need the information for Port-au-Prince, just simply click on the Port-au-Prince link here, right above the tracking chart at the top of the site. And also at hurricanecity.tv, the latest news and media from television sources, radio, the Hurricane Watch Net. We're going to leave it up all night for you with some of the frequencies from the hurricane frequencies. See if we can pick anything up as this goes through the Bahamas. But check out hurricanecity.tv. If there's anything really interesting as this whole thing progresses with Tomas, we will record it for our archive subscribers. But right now it looks like there's not a whole lot to report. So we're going to keep the feed up at hurricanecity.tv for at least the next 24 hours, and then we'll go back to our regular programming. That's it for now. Thank you again for visiting hurricanecity.com.